Dear team, it's Tuesday. Here's an idea. Man, God is God. Like, he don't need all them different confusing names like Jireh and nephew or niece, whatever. Nisi. Now, that's an idea. But here's some information. In the book of Genesis, Abraham calls a place Jehovah Jireh because God provided for him. He provided a ram in the bush for a sacrifice. If you call your father a provider because he pays the bills, goes to work, and makes sure you have food, it would be a similar thing because he provides different things for you. He's your father, but he's also your provider. So Jehovah is God in Hebrew. And in Hebrew, Jireh is provider. Now, this was in Genesis chapter 22 and verses 13 and 14. There are other Hebrew names for God based on how God showed himself, how he interacted with the people. Even according to Encyclopedia Britannica, Moses had an encounter with God and was then introduced to God as Yahweh in the book of Exodus. But there are even other names for God in the Bible. For instance, El Shaddai, which means God Almighty. Jehovah Rapha, which means the God that heals. And it's not Jehovah's niece. It's Jehovah Nisi, which means God my banner. Let's go back to the word. The second book of the Bible, we got Genesis is number 1. Second is Exodus. Genesis, Exodus. In the book of Exodus, in chapter 17 and verse 15, Moses built an altar and he named that altar Jehovah Nisi. This is because God was the one doing all the fighting. God was the one who was winning those battles for his people. They understood that without him as the covering, without him as the banner above them, Moses and God's people were never considered the underdogs. So God was like that banner of protection over them, and he was fighting for them. So basically, you telling me these people had different experiences with God, so they gave them different names, and those names meant different things based on how God was interacting with them, right? So that's actually pretty cool. So basically, they saw God in different ways. Yeah, it was like their relationship was growing with them. Yeah, I like that. So how do I make a decision based on this information? Well, the next step is implementation. Really, there's 2 things to take away. One is that we should be expecting to experience God in new ways. Our relationship with God should be growing and evolving. But guess what? When it happens, though, we may not necessarily build a pillar and put a bunch of rocks together and build a bridge or a statue, a monument to remember the moment. But let me encourage you maybe to write it down in a journal, maybe post about it on social media, record yourself telling the story, telling what God did in your life, sharing how you were struggling with something, had a need, and God provided that need for you. The key is just documenting it some way, somehow, so that you can remember how God moved on your behalf, how God came to answer your need and your relationship grew with him in that moment. Then the second thing, when you begin to pray, start using the names in the Bible for God as he has revealed himself to be in the Bible. So if you have a need and you need God to provide, maybe in that prayer you call him Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. Oh yeah, that's right. To actually use his name in prayer, that means we're actually praying, right? So try it today. When you pray today, try to use a name in the Bible for God describing something that maybe you need. If you need him to be your banner and you need him to fight for you, maybe call him Jehovah Nisi. But remember that God is Almighty. He is El Shaddai, God Almighty. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. But dear team, it's Tuesday, and I want you to know that I love you, and this is a safe place for you. You're welcome here. All right, it's your boy, Sean Gary, and I'm out. Have a great week on purpose. Peace.